Hello everyone, this is the third and final session in the Duel in the Lotus. I'm going to look at one or two little aphorisms that have helped me during my life that have been useful to me in many ways. Some of them I use as mantras. I've used them in many talks, and they've always helped me, so I hope perhaps they may help you. So let's just breathe out any tension, be nice and relaxed. Again, we've got a lovely setting. We've got a nice Zen temple at the back of me. Beautiful grounds. It's a wonderful place. So a virtual place, of course, but still just as beautiful. Breathe out any tension. So as a theosophical student aspiring to be theosophists, or anyone on a genuine spiritual path, we know that we cannot separate ourselves from anything else on any level. We're at one with the physical, etheric or astral, or the whole earth, with the mental, etc. We just suffer under the great dire heresy of separateness that weans us from the rest. And that's another aphorism that I use a lot, from the Voice of the Silence, of course. In the end, as we have seen before, there's only one consciousness, one spirit that pervades everything and takes on different masks at different levels. We are probably aware that the word personality derives from the Latin word persona, which means a mask, and was originally used by the ancient Greeks who used masks in theatrical performances. So they knew they were masking something, and it's come down to be used as the personality, which implies that we are masking something, or the true self. So in reality, yeah, we are masking the fact that we all share the same spirit. Separateness is indeed a great dire heresy. So I have certain ideals and ideas that I try to live up to in my life. I don't succeed that often, but I try, at least I try. These help me to break down barriers between myself and others and to try and live a compassionate life. So these are 10 of the aphorisms that help me. There are more, but these are a selection of the main ones. Some are challenging, but this is important. To have challenges strengthens the spirit in us. So the first is not to forgive just 7, but 70 times 7 times. And that's from the New Testament, from Jesus. So in this world, people tend to imagine that revenge is sweet. They will quote the Bible as saying, it should be an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But of course, Jesus refuted this by saying that we should love our enemies and bless those that curse us, etc. This is conveniently forgotten as we tend more towards our lower tendencies. If we really want to break the cycle of violence or hatred, we have to make the first step and learn to be forgiving. It isn't easy, and we do tend to react in a conditioned way when confronted by any kind of anger directed at us or any wrong we think is done to us, because we automatically try to protect our personal selves. It may be different in protecting the family or someone who is being abused, etc. But we do tend to be very slow to forgive. It's a conditioning that we all have. The second is hatred is not overcome by hatred. Only love overcomes hatred. That's from the Dhammapada, a Buddhist scripture. So hatred is never productive. If someone in our lives or in the world in general has done something we regard as terrible, then sending that person thoughts of hatred and anger will only increase the hatred and anger in that person. We're in fact feeding the negativity in them. What we need to do is to send out loving thoughts, which can only be helpful in the long run. Never easy, again, from the mental stage of evolution that we are at, but at least we can try. The Theosophical Masters always say, try. That's all we can do. The third is love your enemies, bless those that curse you, and pray for those that despitefully use you, as I mentioned a little while earlier from Jesus again. For the same reasons I just mentioned, I mean, ideally, as a true martial artist, say there should be no such thing as an enemy, and always efforts to restore peace. If that does not work, and some kind of conflict is forced, then still one should have respect for the so-called enemy. If someone curses you, the natural reaction is to curse them back and grow angry. But this shows too much attachment to the fleeting personality. We should try, again that word try, to understand what led that person to curse us, what's going on in their lives. We should be kind to them and try to allay their anger. In the same way, a person who despitefully uses us is incurring a great deal of negative karma upon themselves, and we should pity their ignorance, as they will suffer more in the long run than we will. They don't realize that. It's a case of what Jesus is supposed to have said on the cross. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. 4 is show pity, be gentle and kind, and pass the gentlest sentence possible upon those who err. Now, a few years ago, I visited an exhibition at the Imperial War Museum North in Salford, near Manchester. I'm a big admirer of Anne Frank, and I was looking at an exhibition regarding the Holocaust. Hitler had told his soldiers to show no pity and to be ruthless against the Jews and others. So I decided to devise a little mantra that said the opposite, which is the one I've mentioned: show pity, be gentle and kind, and pass the gentlest sentence possible upon those who err. It's derived from something H.P. Blavatsky wrote. I'm not a great believer in punishment. I don't see how it improves someone. H.P. Blavatsky says in The Key to Theosophy that she believed that everyone had a responsive chord in them that would respond to words or actions of kindness. And maybe there are a tiny little percentage that don't, but most people do. Of course, some of the most dangerous people need to be kept confined to protect the public, but capital punishment, execution, merely means to kill the physical body and freeze the astral so that the murderer can influence others to continue his crimes. This is something that people are not aware of, that execution will only kill the physical, and that's not the real person. The person has many other levels. So the 5th is with gentleness overcome anger, with generosity overcome meanness, with truth overcome deceit. That's again from the Dhammapada. So I've tried to practice overcoming anger with gentleness many times, and unless the angry person is insane or totally evil, it does work. As if the anger is not fueled, it dies out. Applying the opposite is a very good touchstone for living. If you respond to someone or some situation in a way that is not expected, i.e. returning gentleness for anger, then the other party is thrown into a kind of confusion because they expect a conditioned reaction. So the situation is short-circuited, if you like, and is brought to an end. I think if one is centered in the divine and one is not immersed in the personality, then it is relatively easy to pity the aggressive one and to hate them or desire revenge. H.P. Blavatsky said that no true theosophist would ever despair of humanity. Sometimes also if you use a kind of crazy response, almost a Zen-like response to what people say in anger, that also short-circuits it. Say something that's totally unrelated to the situation. It throws people into confusion because they just expect you to react in a certain way. And if you don't, they're totally thrown off balance. Again, a kind of, well, you might say a kind of martial arts in a good way. So the sixth is have patience as one who doth for evermore endure. That's from the Voice of the Silence. And this is what I think of as one of my mantras, what I call one of my mantras, which has a great power if you think on it. Most people are convinced we only have this one life, and therefore base all their actions and thoughts on that one idea. This verse from the Voice of the Silence goes on to say, thy shadows live and vanish. Shadows are the personalities, the personal selves. That which in thee shall live forever, that which in thee knows, for it is knowledge, is not a fleeting life. 'Tis the man that was, that is, and will be, for whom the hour shall never strike. And that's very, very comforting to know that the hour will never strike. There is no such thing as death, according to these teachings. This helps us to center on the spiritual self, which is unchanging. In the East, it is known as the Sutratma, or the thread soul, as all our lives are strung on it like pearls on a golden thread. The true self is a thread that runs through. So it is comforting that the hour will never strike for us, as regards our true self, anyway. 7 is, look inward, thou art Buddha. Now, Buddha means enlightened. We all have the Buddha nature. As the Zen master Bankei says, we don't need to become Buddhas, we just have to remain Buddhas, because we are already there, but not aware. And this verse says the same. It says, look inward, thou art Buddha, not thou wilt become Buddha. So it also says in the Voice of the Silence, to give the full verse, seeking the impersonal for the eternal man. Buddhists call the true self the true man or the true woman. So seeking the impersonal for the eternal man, and having sought him out, look inward, thou art Buddha. So we are all Buddhas now at this very moment. We just allow the clouds of the mind creates prevent us from seeing it and being aware of it. So Plato continues this idea in the next one, number 8, is all learning is merely recollection. So it's all about remembering who we are and not just gathering facts, which aren't of much use in the long term. The path is one of naturalness. It's returning to sanity. It's getting rid of words and images to see ourselves as we truly are. Difficult to get across. But when you think that words are not natural, they are man-made, the written word is just shapes on paper that convey something to us in images, feelings, or ideas, but never can fully replace direct experience. It's waking up and escaping the morass of indoctrination from a materialistic society, education, and the media, to return to the innocence and simplicity of our place in the unfolding of nature. We are as much a part of nature as a tree or a flower is. And it's all a natural process. You know, we've made man-made things to help us to come to that, but eventually we have to abandon them. There's no spiritual teaching that eventually you have to forget everything that you've learned before you can proceed onwards, everything that you've learned intellectually. So the 9th is another one of my favorites. Heaven-sent madness is preferable to man-made sanity. Now, and that's another one from Plato. I did a talk on this. It's like a continuation of the last one. The media and the education system, based upon material concepts and ideas, tell us how we must act and think to be regarded as sane. If we follow the dictates of our higher self, all that is turned on its head, and the world in general may regard us as being insane, because we're living by a different set of values and insights. It is difficult to go against the flow, against 99% of society, and follow just your inner nature, but it's the only path to freedom. It's the only portal that we can pass through on our way to freedom. So number 10, the final one, is take heart, for the race of man is divine. And this is from the golden verses of Pythagoras. We should realize that everyone, in essence, is divine. We create the clouds that hide the sun, as said. I mentioned earlier that H.P. Blavatsky said that no theosophist should ever despair of humanity. We have to hope that people will awaken to the truth and that we can do our part, no matter how large or small, in bringing that about. So we must never despair. Terrible things are going on in the world, and we know that. But we should always be working to try and bring about an awakening of the divinity in other people, to bring about, if you like, a golden age, even if it's just a mini golden age. We're in the age of Kali, but we can always insert into that age of Kali times of golden ages, even small golden ages. It's not all, it's just the overall thing is the age of Kali, the age of darkness. But within that, there are wheels within wheels within wheels. And we should always remember that we're not that insignificant. We're all divine beings. And we can all play our part. So these, of course, are practical ways of living the life that appeal to me personally. But as the voice of the silence says, the teachers can but point the way. And that means that to reach the goal, it must vary with the pilgrim, the student or the pupil, whatever. Perhaps some of you could write down any rules or guidelines that you find useful, anything that helps towards forming this brotherhood, universal brotherhood of humanity, regardless of race, creed, sex, caste, or colour, and helping us also to dissolve the great dire heresy of separateness that weans us from the rest. And then we could help to break down a few mind-forged manacles, as William Blake calls them in his poem London. We create our own mind-forged manacles, but we can also break our own mind-forged manacles. So it's good to know the scientific reasons why we are a brotherhood, but unless we put this into practice, it's all pointless. We should go away from these sessions on this Duel in the Lotus, determined to at least try to be brotherly and sisterly to others, to try to show kindness and compassion. Remember, it is in living that you really learn the good and the bad, or what we designate as good and bad. So the Theosophical Society is meant to be a nucleus of this universal brotherhood. So we need to try to live it. When I talk about the Theosophical Society and Theosophy, there's also the organizations working towards the same ends. And, as long as they're working towards this brotherhood, this universal brotherhood, and following the dictates of the higher divine self and the spirit within, and it's all good. And we have so much negative news in the world today, so much fear mongering, so much trying to hold us down, hold us back, to crush the spirit in us. And that's what very much prevalent in the world today, unfortunately. So we must at least try to keep that light burning. It says in the Bible, don't hide your light under a bushel. Bring it out, put it on show. Try to be a light unto others. Try to keep that light burning. Because it needs people to live this spiritual life, and to try at least to keep this flame alive, the flame of true divine spirituality. So that's why you should never despair, because people start despairing, the light will go out, the light will fade. So we have to keep going, realizing that eventually the light will grow stronger and stronger. And then eventually we will have a time when spirituality is uppermost in the world. It won't be in our lifetimes, it may be many centuries, but it will come about. And we will, of course, we will return. If we believe in reincarnation, we will return in the future and carry on where we left off. We talk about reincarnation and karma as being the hope and responsibility. Reincarnation gives us hope that we can continue, it's not the end. And karma gives us responsibility that we can't do anything without affecting everyone else, because we're all one. And what we do that's negative or harmful will come back upon us. And the same with what we do that's good, so we don't live alone, we don't live separately. Although our thoughts and our actions affect everyone else. Remember that. Always remember that. And keep the flame alive. Keep the light burning, the light that never shone on land or sea, the beautiful light of the divine spirit within. Thank you. Om Shanti, 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 peace, 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 peace on earth and goodwill to all beings. And see you again very soon